Hello, everybody, and welcome to another interview with the artist. And today I am very excited about our guest, somebody who I have appreciated from afar for quite a long time and been an admirer of their work, and now finally get a chance to sit down and talk to in detail. Tommie, how you doing, brother?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm quite excited for this. So this is all new for me, being on somebody else's channel, and on Discord as well. Which you know, I'm old school, so I'm almost still using landlines and telephones, VHSs.
You don't have to explain. I am also an old person. This world has forced me to learn things I didn't want to learn, but here we are.
Well, maybe I can learn a few things off you then as well.
There you go.
Uh, yeah,
There
I
you
think
go. I'm happy to share.
good stuff. Fate is bringing me into the fold, I suppose.
So we're going to talk about Tommie's journey. We're going to look at some of his pieces, all that kind of fun stuff today. But I want to shout out right at the beginning one of the reasons, the occasion for having this conversation, other than I've wanted to interview Tommie for a long time, what sort of predicated all of this was that, Tommie, you are working with Dave Taylor for the next series of The Art of. And you have a whole book coming out on Kickstarter right now, already funded. So everybody who is familiar with Dave Taylor and The Art of, Series 1 was funded a while back. That was books 1, 2, and 3. They were amazing. I have them. They're absolute, just quality printings. Like, Dave does an amazing job. Books 4 through 6 are now on Kickstarter. That is live. You can find the link down below. And Tommie, you've got one of those 3 books.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. When Dave first asked me, I was a little bit confused, a little bit dumbstruck. The first words out of my mouth were, "Why me?" He gave his reasons. And I just have to trust him that he's
Hey,
chosen
look,
wise.
that Kickstarter is more than funded. That Kickstarter is more than funded. So I think Dave had the right intuition here, and I can't wait to see what's in the book. But I want to get right into it. Okay, I want to talk about what we always talk about here, which is I want to talk about this weird hobby we all decided to engage in. Like, this is as I've said every time, this is a really bizarre thing we all chose to do, right? How
Yep.
often are miniature painters the butt of jokes in movies or something like that, right? And yet we all decided, knowing that what we wanted to do with our lives was paint tiny little plastic or resin or metal people, and we are happy with it and fulfilled by it. So what got you into it? Like, what made you decide I want to start painting miniatures? What got you into this whole hobby?
Well, it depends how far back you want to go.
All
So,
the way.
as any kid, as any young kid is in the last 100 and whatever years, building and making things is a given. We all want to build and make things. Then I think about how young me and all my brothers were when we started playing with Lego,
Sure.
building and making things. Then you end up doing airfix somewhere along the line, or something in a freaking Kinder Egg, a toy out of a machine, like that you get
Sure.
for 10p or something. You want to build it, you want to make it. You know, there's the progression. I'm sure we all go through that to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at different ages maybe, but to some degree we all want to build and make things. Um, and then in that little mix, I remember one of my cousins. He was into it, much older than I was. This cousin, and he was into Warhammer way back in the 80s. And he didn't want to do it anymore, and he ended up giving me a lot of his stuff. Which is, for those that remember and those that know. I don't know what you remember and what you know, but there's the first box set of Ruglud's Armored Orcs. So
Sure.
Ruglud had swords held above his head, and there's a bunch of elf war dancers as well. As well as, I think I remember when I was a really small child, like 9, maybe 10, maybe more, maybe less, I don't know. But I remember when I was in Plymouth, there was a Games Workshop store there. I actually bought some squat ancestors,
Nice.
So
Well, that's
really,
timely.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with the new Necromunda stuff. Yeah, who expected that? Crazy.
Everything old is new again. Hey, give them enough time.
Yeah.
We circle back to all the good ideas. That's what I say.
Well, that makes the premise of almost everything, and I try and paint really, but we'll come to that in a little bit, I'm sure.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, later on, as a young kid, I'm more playing with these acquisitions,
Sure.
these Warhammer things. I don't really understand what it is, what it's for, blah blah blah. I tried painting them with me Humbrol paints, as
Yep.
again I'm sure I'll do from back in those times. And one day we was in Manchester city centre. We walked past the Brown Street Games Workshop, and that must have been maybe 1988,
Okay.
89, 87, somewhere in there.
Sure.
And I noticed these things. I was like, that's an entire store dedicated to this business. And one of the things that really caught me attention as I was looking through the cabinet window, through the window into the cabinet, was there was an Eldar Phantom Titan. It
Sure.
was painted metallic red. It had gold trim, and it was on this base. And this thing was shooting at whatever it was shooting at on the ground. I can't remember if it was Orcs or whether it was Space Marines. But I do remember the name of the artist, and I don't believe I've ever met the artist. So if for some mad reason there's an ancient hobbyist watching this now from Manchester and his name is Ash, I thank you. I
Nice.
thank Ash. Whoever Ash is. So, this thing was on this wonderful warm wooden plinth. It was only thick. It kind of looked like a picture frame, but it wasn't. It was a trophy base.
Sure.
But it had that nice little kind of routed edge. Yeah, and that just caught me attention. My mum wanted to drag me along, but I was like, I just want to look. She ended up taking me in, and the Games Workshop service that they had in the 80s happened, and then I was hooked, I suppose, because I kept going back in,
Right.
and I kept buying things, or rather, my mum kept buying things for me, and wow, I've never gone into this in any detail with anybody actually. So like it's all like different snapshots, and I'm trying to sift and sort them now
Sure. Sure.
into what's what, but it's all massively nostalgic.
So when you
You
go
know,
back and you keep buying things, here's my question: were you then painting them? Like, did you have like proper paints yet? Because there was some acrylic paints around. The Citadel like beginner paint set would have existed at this point in time. Like, did you pick that up? Like, or were you still fighting through? Was the hobby not part of it yet? How did you get on then, as far as that goes?
all right. So I can't remember necessarily my first paint sets or whether I got them individually. I can remember one event. I sent you a picture of a Chaos
Yep.
Sorcerer just before we went live here. I think that's my earliest memory of deliberately buying um, Citadel paints. I did already have Citadel paints. I was already equipped by this point because actually one of the first forays. So this is the other picture I've just sent you of the
Yep.
dwarf and the elf, the plastic dwarf, the plastic elf.
Got them up now too.
They were really my first real attempts at right. I'm no longer a child at this. I'm playing with them. They're not toys. They're now this thing that I'm realizing is a craft. Is kind of something to be part of a journey with. It's something to aim at and aim with. Even wargaming puns not intended in
Sure.
that. You
Sure.
know,
Sure.
um, and that kit was brought for my birthday by my older brother. So that really started to inform the races I liked. I like good
Okay.
races. Generally, I liked elves. I'm a bit of a tree climber myself, or a rock climber, as you can see on my Instagram.
Sure.
Um, so I believe, and I use this example to a lot of my students actually. The deliberacy and the I'm going to call it the obviousness. Want for a better term, because I know it's not obvious to everybody. I'm going to call it the obviousness of painting was there for me, like
Sure.
immediately. Now, regardless of the standard of results I was getting as a kid, there was certain principles that were like I see that, and I see that for what it is. And the example I use a lot is painting eyes. So if you look at the elf model, you'll see the eyes are painted. I don't know if any of the viewers can see
Yep.
what it is
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
talking about.
They can
All
see
right.
it. It's up on the other. It's up on my other side of my screen. So yes, they're all looking at it as we're talking. The elf is up.
Right. Now I hope, because when I sent this to you, it was a little bit rushed, but I hope you can see the eyes on the
You
elf
can.
are painted. You
Yep.
know, there's white and there's a pupil. Now, when I was younger, that to me was obvious that I needed a small brush with a small amount of paint that flowed nicely, and that brush needed a good point on it, and I needed to go in slowly and with a small amount of pressure. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Now, anything outside of that just it didn't enter my brain. Now, this is I'm only saying this in hindsight.
Sure.
As a kid, it was just, oh, that's what you do. That's bang. Well, it wasn't bang. It was.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
um, but yeah, like I think the simplicity and that obviousness, because it was there at a young age for whatever reason, you know, that started to really build the foundation in because I really paid attention to everything as a kid. I mean, everything. I paid attention. You know, outside of the hobby, inside of the hobby, I
It's
paid attention.
fascinating because I think a lot of what you said there isn't intuitive to everybody who picks up the paintbrush or picks up the hobby, right? The
Hmm.
idea of varying the density of your paint so to affect how it flows, the idea of exactly how sharp your tip needs to be or how big your brush needs to be or something like that. Some of that's more intuitive than others, but not everybody always, I think, really cottons to all of that right away. And so it's fascinating that those lessons all felt pretty intuitive to you.
Yeah. Now, when I'm with my students, though, or if on a random live stream on my Instagram or what have you, I think you're actually the first person I've had this discussion with where I actually don't take you or maybe your viewers through that experience in a questioning way.
Sure.
I've just said, here's the things, bang, bang, bang. Normally, I would go, well, what kind of brush would you choose? What kind of, and I don't meet anybody, regardless of level, that doesn't give me the right answers in every one of them instances. Now, if I can ask you every one of those questions in all those orders and not have anybody get the wrong answer, that tells me something about the potential for every single person who wants to paint.
Oh,
That tells me
absolutely.
something. You know, because and that's very much the kind of experiences I take all my students through, because it's the ability to become aware of things that enables you to make more choices towards creating better results.
I
You
like
know,
that.
and well, thank you. And it's the ability to ask questions and explore, whether it be with your eyes or your brain, that enable you to become aware of those things.
Right.
You know, which is why the most important skill you should be developing is what am I aware of and what choices can I make with it? Am I aware of the things that stop me from getting towards my goals, and can I choose to avoid them? Am I aware of the things that aid me in going towards my goals, and can I enhance them? Do you know what I mean?
I do. Absolutely. I love this. This is fantastic. So, and I
It's
think we're going to absolutely dig into that in a big way as we go on, because the way the number of people I had when I said we were doing the show who responded, "You're an amazing teacher," and that you changed the way they paint and stuff like that, it was really high. Okay, a lot of people
really,
pinged me or reached out or stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. And I know
thank you.
how well known you are for being a teacher, and that you really are, I think, recognized as someone who views the philosophical underpinnings, the meta hobby differently than a lot of other people do. And I definitely want to dig into that for sure.
Please do, please do.
All right, so but before we dig into that part, I want to know how you got to that point. So you had these initial sort of obvious revelations, right? Now, where's the arc between where you were, right? So I've got the elf and the dwarf up. We're painting, and then this chaos guy, right? So we've got this stuff.
Chaos guy next. Chaos
Yeah,
guy next.
yep. And then we go to the chaos guy. Where does the arc take you? Like, what's the growth trajectory? When do you start realizing, hey, I've got too many unknown unknowns. I need to start asking questions so I can get to some known unknowns, right? Because you didn't. This is one of the biggest problems, especially when it comes to newest painters. There's newer painters. They're not even aware of how much they don't know. They don't often know what questions to ask, right? So how did you then follow that growth to learn those questions?
So I was really lucky one day. I'm gonna deal with the Chaos Warrior that I sent you, because this is really pivotal to that idea of paying attention.
Okay.
Yeah, because I believe in these penny drop moments. They're the moments where you go, oh yeah, it's that obvious, and I never saw it. And these are those points on that curve.
Yep.
And I view them more as steps, Vince. The steps are like the moment the moment you just go, oh, I can choose that. Your curve doesn't go like that. You just go bang, I'm now better, because you make the choice. It's instantaneous. The moment you realize you can do it, you step up. So choices, make awareness and choice the thing. So let me go back to the Chaos Warrior. So back in the day when Games Workshop used to run heavy metal road shows, I was lucky enough to watch Tim Prow paint, who influenced me in many ways, and I'd love to talk to him, but I'm sure he avoids me online. I don't know, but then he's extra old school when I think about it. I'm sure he's done with all this. But Tim Prow is to be an influence on me in multiple occasions on this journey. You know, two of which face to face. As a kid. So when I was a younger kid, I wasn't really as outgoing as I am. This is something I've learned, through working for Games Workshop and working online. But Tim Prow was sat there with Nigel Stillman at this desk. Nigel Stillman was painting this like insect armed Chaos Warrior thing, and Tim was painting that Chaos Warrior, not that actual one in the picture, but that Chaos Warrior.
But that model.
And I got a chair and I sat there in front of him, barely said a word to him. I admired his Megadeth t-shirt. I am a massive Megadeth fan, by the way. Again, that man had a big influence on me. I loved his Megadeth t-shirt. It was amazing. It was from the Rust in Peace album. And I got to look at his miniatures because they were there. I had the desk. I was like, I'm sitting here. I'm having the chair. I'm sitting in front of me. I'm just going to watch him. I got to see the Dark Angels Marine bike, all these old heavy metal paint jobs. For those that don't know, I'd recommend going back to White Dwarves from 150 backwards. There's some of Tim Prow's work, by the way, actually. Literally right now, I say Tim Prow is a thing for me. Tim Prow is a thing for me. Just to iterate that again, Tim Prow article again.
Nice.
Tim Prow is a thing, repeated again and again and again. And he's a name you don't hear a lot, actually. You don't hear Tim Prow's name in our painting circles as far as history goes, and not to my knowledge.
No, I don't think I've ever had anyone mention him. No, in all the interviews, as an influence.
I think we struggle to find pictures online, So anyway, so I got to look at heavy metal standard work right there in front of me, but I also got to watch Tim Prow paint that Chaos Sorcerer from start to finish. And I watched it intently. Now, I've already said I'm an attentive guy. I was an attentive kid. And I paid attention.
Sure.
Keyword, attention. I paid attention. I paid attention to the big stuff and the small stuff. And I watched it from start to finish. I chatted to him for a bit. I looked at his models in detail. the end of that day, I bought the same model, same paints, same brush, went home, from memory, painted that Chaos Warrior you see in front of you. Now, when you look at that in detail, you start to see certain things. You see dynamic highlighting on the robes.
Sure.
You see a blend from dark to a blue on the sword. You see deliberate targeting for all the bone structure and blah, blah, blah. You see deliberate use of different consistencies in the highlighting on the robes. Do you see what I mean? Now, it's kind of crude, but I was, maybe 11, 12, 13?
No, sure, absolutely.
You know, and watching him perform and do actions that I wasn't doing. So I was intimate enough with myself and how I painted to go, all right, so I paint like this, but I see him doing this. Right, so now there's a choice.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
So so clear with how, not how wrong you're getting it. So once you're really familiar with how you are doing things, anything outside of that becomes very obvious. But if you're not familiar with how you are doing things, then anything outside of that's not going to be obvious because you're just not familiar with it. You see what I mean?
I do.
You know, so like, for example, let's take this stereotypical example of an artist, and I've got my schmuck on and a beret and a palette in my hand, and I'm going like this. Now, when I see a lot of people painting, they're painting in that kind of way. But that's not how you get deliberate results, by having a painterly kind of do you see what I mean?
Yep.
So you've got to be like, all of a sudden you've got to get a grip and go, hang on a minute. If I do these three kind of movements and I'm really trying to get a nice smooth base coat, really you're going to get a base coat that goes instead of clean, clean, clean. See what I mean? The mindset changes.
Yep.
My actions change. The way I say the word clean changes. Everything changes. You know, and that's about what you think you're trying to do. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. I went home, I painted that model. I was like, that's a result. And I started to then apply that to a number of other models. I nearly sent you more pictures, actually. Again, one of an ultramarine. Again, I've just showed you a bunch of Tim Prow inspired ultramarines.
Sure.
Why? Because later on, either that year or a couple of years after, I went to a games day. Tim Prow was at games day. These were yet to be released, and he was painting them.
Nice.
So I got to sit again. And watch him paint. You know, and that was for the release of, so we could pin this down. Actually, I think it might have been Games Day '92, because it was the release of second edition Space Marine.
Okay.
I went home with Space Marine that day. Yeah, my mum bought me Space Marine.
The same year, basically, 4th edition Fantasy Battles launched.
Yeah. Which I also got as well. I got so much to thank my mum for, honestly. She didn't even want to take me in. She didn't want to take me in, but, you know, there you go.
A lifetime of hobby later.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mum's also one of my harsh critics, you know. She hurt me one day. I was like so proud of something. She went, "Oh, it's missing something." I was like, "Explain." I was an adult and all.
A good statement on why it's good to have some neutral third-party feedback on your work, for sure.
Oh yeah, and thick skin. There's something I've had to develop.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm developing these skills as time goes by, and I know, again, I didn't realize this is like therapy for me. I've never actually got all this out in one go, step by step. So my favorite game I started to play was Space Marine.
Okay.
Tim Prow's influenced me twice. I love the Eldar because I saw that initial thing painted by Ash. I've got an Eldar army for Epic, and I've started painting it. So, you know, you're talking tanks this big.
Yeah. Little, very, very, very small scale, yes.
Yeah, a rhino's 2 centimeters long, centimeter and a half wide. These things are tiny for those that don't know. So I'm painting this Epic Eldar army in the BL tan color scheme. Again, this is Tim Prow inspired, now that I think back about it, because the War Walker he painted was Biel-Tan, and it had the thorn design up the leg.
Yep.
Which is where all that comes from. In fact, Tim Prow's responsible for more than people think in this hobby, right? And I'll elaborate on that later on, not and all, right? Like real big, substantial. It's the fireworks show of this of what we do in the painting hobby. Tim Prow's responsible for it, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll get to that later on. So I'm painting each of these tanks blended from a light lime green up to white with a thorn pattern, vine thorn pattern on. And I'll be going down to the games night. And I remember this, the first time I went, I'm there this high at the gaming table,
Sure.
you know, because I taught myself how to play. You know, I'd sit there on my own and have one model and I'd play a game model to model just to learn how to do it. Right, how do we do this? Because it's confusing when you try and play a game.
Sure.
And I go, let's just reduce it down to as simple as I can do it. Again, example of being attentive as a kid and deliberate. One model versus one model, let's do it. Right, okay. Well, I can do that with an handful of 10 dice and 10 models. Easy peasy. You know. So I'm there. I'm just going for a game. I have no clue, by the way, of painting skill, if you will. All I've done is acknowledge that somebody in front of me that I really like is doing something. I don't know where that is in. I'm a kid. I'm quite ignorant about it.
Yep.
But the guy stood next to me on my side of the table, looks down at me, and I look up at him, and he went, "You painted them. You've not painted them." And I was like, I didn't really know what to say because I'm just quite a kid at the time. But I was like, I was quite surprised because, I mean, I'm not doing it for compliments. I'm not doing it for awards. I'm not doing it. I'm just doing it because that's how I just think it's done.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm doing it because I enjoy it and because that's how I think it's done. Not should be done. Do you know what I mean? Or it should be done like that. No, that's just how I think it is done. That's just how it is. It's innocent and it's love based. I just want to do it for the sake of doing it. Yeah, which is the biggest, I think, fuel for anyone. It's the best fuel because you can't fail.
Right. 100% agree.
Doing it for trophies and likes, you're doing it for the wrong reason, which I've also done in my time, by the way. And it's not a good reason. It's quite harmful, you know. Unless you're quite industrious, business minded, then that's something else. but just know that the love for the sake of it and this hobby just has to come first. Otherwise, you're just building something superficial. Anyway, so yes, and then I started to realise that hang on a minute, there's something a little bit different because people are complimenting me or setting me aside. You know, in the hobby, they go, all right, this guy, regardless of whether he's playing games, regardless of who or what he is, I say this guy, this kid. I'm singled out as being point, look, say whether it's compliments or So I'm very used, though I still don't like it with he's good at painting, break his fingers and all that kind of razzmatazz you hear in painting circles all the time. Like, dude, all I really ever want to do is just help you. So, but it's well-meaning, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So anyway, time goes on. I find out there's such a thing as a Golden Demon Awards. They had regional competitions back then, and I made Orc Chariot. And Games Workshop had these. Like the Warhammer Giant used to come in a not a metal box, sorry, a big plastic box with like a slot back.
Yep.
Yeah, you go slide out. The Marauder Giant, which I need to get hold of one. I'd love one of them. I'd like to do a modern paint job on one of them.
He's a super cool giant.
It's top, isn't it? It's really good.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that came out of the Marauder studio, like those couple of people, really did some pretty timeless work overall. I really think part of it is just because they were kind of left to their own devices, largely from all the stories and interviews I've seen, where they just kind of were just there making the stuff that they thought was cool. They could take time and be passionate about it and just produce things that I think really stood this test of time.
The dwarves, they're still the best dwarves ever sculpted by anyone. You know, doesn't matter how good new dwarves are, they're better. Character. But they really are, though, aren't they? It's not just like, I don't think it's nostalgic, because I've looked at them recently and I still look and I go, do you know what? Yeah, I want to paint that now. And I don't think, oh, I'd have to compensate. I have to sharpen some things with paint because the mold is softer. Sure. I look at it and I go, it's just a good model, you know.
I'm the wrong person to ask because unfortunately I have a lifelong hatred of all things dwarven. So
that's all right.
I'm not a good. I'll back you on the elvish play. That's fine. I just hate dwarves.
The Dark Elves were fantastic as well. Do you remember the Beastmasters and like the little Mastiff hounds they had with them? Fantastic. The paint job on them really made an impression on me and all, because I really think they got the texture of like that. It's like mottled red chestnut dog coat. I don't know. It's not a pelt, is it? But smooth dog finish. You know, they really nailed the colours on it. Yeah, it was top back in the day. Yeah, Marauder Dark Elves.
Gray Seer in the comments just said the original Marauder Storm Vermin are actually pretty decent, even if not as dynamic as the newer plastic. I had a whole army of the original Marauder Storm Vermin. They were much more like muscular, bulky. They seemed much more imposing than the current. So they really build out the like size of them really well.
Yeah. Wow. So I ended up entering the regional Golden Demons to get a commended entry with this Orc Chariot, and that left me feeling really good. But
sure. By the way, quick side note: they brought back commended entries now. That's a thing that actually just returned to the newest competition. They started doing it a little bit in 2019, but now they actually brought it back as an official thing, a level below the demons.
Yeah, I think Dave mentioned something about it recently because he entered, didn't he?
Yep.
I don't really pay attention too much anymore.
I'm just happy to see it return because it was. I think it's something a lot of people forgot existed, and it's nice because it is something that what you just said. It made me feel good. It made me there was a motivation to it. There was a sense of accomplishment to it. There was a sense of recognition to it. However you want to frame it, right? I think it's really nice to have that there.
Sorry, mate. I interrupted you.
No, you're good. I agree completely. It says you're going in the right direction. Yes, completely agree.
Which is what we want, really, isn't it? I think anyone in this hobby, for the sake of painting, whether you're a gamer or not, whether you're a gamer or just a sole painter, the idea of getting better at painting is objective based. You might just want to get quicker regardless of getting better, but that's still better if that's hitting your standards. Do you know what I mean? That's getting you where you want to go, which is the painted army on the table. But I don't know anybody that actively goes, I want a shit painted army.
Right.
No one. You either want an unpainted army, you want somebody else to do it, but you want to do it, but you don't want to. I don't know anybody that says, I will actively choose a shit painted army.
Right. I'd like this to look bad, please. Thank you.
Yeah. No one wants that.
Right.
No one. Can't remember why I was saying this now. I got all sidetracked.
No, you're okay. We were going through the commended entry with the chariot.
Oh, yeah. So, it tells you you're going in the right direction, and everyone wants better. So that the commended entry thing, it's got value. No matter who you are, I think there's value in that. In letting somebody know they're going in the right direction. That, for example, if somebody's finishing models at any standard, then they're going in the right direction.
Yep.
Genuinely.
I completely agree. One of the adages I've always tried to impress upon people is that one, this is a journey without an endpoint, and that is to say the hobby, and two, that any painted model is better than an unpainted model, and that when you're getting things painted, you're going to be learning. The important part about that is to just simply look at your failings, look at what you did, think about what you did, think about what you want to do the same or different on the next one, right?
Yeah.
And because every model you paint is an opportunity to learn something, and that's the
Yeah.
most important thing about what you're doing.
Yeah. Even if that is learning that it's okay to be where you are standard wise,
Absolutely.
you know, because I meet a lot of people who don't want to paint because they think they're not good enough. And that's kind of a violence to self that will stop you getting better.
Right.
It's counterproductive to what it is you're trying to do. But it also kind of discounts the nature of this hobby, which is you meant to love it for the sake of loving it. That was what got me better, if we remember that bit. And I made that point deliberately because I knew we'd come to this part in the discussion. That I was happy no matter how good I was. I strove to get better, but that's because I wanted to. So I loved looking at images of the heavy metal work in White Dwarf. The best way of me looking at those images in the flesh is for me to do it myself. There was no
Yeah,
other
sure.
way to, end the story. So you see all my models behind me there, wherever they are. There you go. So you see all my models there. They're there because I love looking at my own work,
Right.
because that excites that child in me. I'm still that little kid. So when I go to Warhammer World, you will find me looking at heavy metal paint jobs just to learn and admire, and that's it. And I don't know if in fact, you've been in the country recently, haven't you? You've been
I have, yeah.
the museum's a tiring experience, man. I will come out of there after hours, I'll be wiped out. Like it was my friend Damien Pedley. He was the last to witness this happen. Yeah, I just can barely stand. But then again, my health has been up and down over the years. But yeah, it wipes you out, man. It wipes me out. I literally will just concentrate on the tiniest parts of a model for so long, just because it fascinates me how it all fits together.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
answer is, regardless of how skillful, it's simple. Regardless of how difficult, it's simple.
Yeah.
And that's the fascinating bit. I love it. And even though there's times I think with my experience now, even that I kind of know the answers, if you will, I'd never stop looking. I never stop looking in case I find the new thing, whatever that might be.
Oh yeah,
So that
absolutely.
childish sense of curiosity is just there.
I mean, when I was there, I made like we went through the exhibitional, and one of my favorite parts of all of it. There were some people who it was their first time through that. I've been through that exhibition many times in the past, and there are areas and pieces and displays that are some of my favorites. But one of the things that I always spend more time. I mean, I've sat there and looked at them forever, but I still go back and spend more time every time. Is all the Mike McVey dioramas and stuff that are in there that they have now.
Yep.
I love them because they now have them in like a lot of them are in special like punch out shadow boxes, which is great. They're really well displayed, really well lit, and I mean I just stare at them because I just think they're so creative and so amazing, and it's just so worth digging into all the nuance, the detail of the things. I love them to no end.
Yeah, I think what Mike McVey did in those dioramas, I don't think has even been come close to. I don't think anyone has come close to the kind of quality he produced. And like you think about the Lizardmen versus the Conquistador kind of style people. You think about just the quality of dry brushing on the sandstone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just the quality of dry brushing on that is so consistent and is so well done. It should be evidence to everybody here that dry brushing is not a beginner technique, a low standard technique, and not a quick and easy technique, and it can be done with finesse
Oh,
and high
absolutely.
quality.
I mean, Victoria
And
Lamb was another one that always like took dry brushing
yeah,
to just like that showed what it was actually capable of, right? That there was
yeah,
a skill
yeah,
there, just like anything else.
yeah. And she's a pioneer in her own right, just because of OSL.
Yeah, yeah,
You peel back you peel back the words OSL, you find Victoria Lamb under there without a shadow of a doubt.
100%. I mean,
Without
just
a
one of the
doubt.
first people to really realize what we're doing is painting light, right? And just trying to capture light. And she was one of the first people to really, really explore that in miniatures in a big way, in a prolific way.
Yeah, to emulate light. To emulate light.
Right.
Without a doubt, yeah, to create the illusion, you
Yep.
know. Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. And the simplicity with which she was able to do that is mind-boggling. And I'm going to use that word throughout tonight a lot, is simplicity. Although it's like a tightrope walk, it doesn't make it easy, you know. And working on your simplicity will just up your standard. It'll up your economy. It'll up your speed. It'll up everything. I find a lot of painters, you know, they're all looking for the next expert techniques, the next hardest thing. And it's not, it's all at the beginning, man. It's all in your ability to do it as simple and as obvious as possible. How well can you do it simple and obvious?
So
You know?
I want to drill in on the epiphany thought, because I agree with you very much that there are these moments of epiphany. And I just brought up a piece that you had sent me, and you said, you know, this was a big moment. And so I think this will continue on this story. So I brought up this, I think he's a Blood Angel winged guy with like jump pack guy. I don't know his name, or I'm sorry. But
yeah, it's a sanguinary guy.
There we go. That's what it was. See, I have heard that before. I knew that. That was a thing I knew. Right on. Yes, I was just about to say that. No, okay. So you mentioned when we were talking before that this was a big epiphany piece for you, and you know, was relevant to this discussion. So take us through this piece and why this was a moment of revelation for you.
Right. So there's a number of reasons why that model's important. And excuse me if I'm a little bit apprehensive in this, but some of it's a bit showy offy. And I don't wish to be that guy, but there's kind of no way of going about it. So in fact, I'm talking about, so I'll deal with that first. I think that painting that model is responsible for me being really known in this hobby.
Okay.
If I hadn't painted that model, I think I'd be a nobody. Though I don't think I'm a somebody. Do you know what I mean?
I understand what you mean.
Yeah, I don't.
We're all just people.
Yeah, absolutely. But I know that when I painted that model and when I posted it on Cool Mini or not, people took notice of me. I got a lot of attention pretty quick. And it was not long after that model that I went freelance.
Okay.
You know, I left Games Workshop. Now, the reason is there weren't many people doing realistic non-metal metallics at the time.
Right.
And there was a handful of people that were close and that were or doing it. And I became one of that handful of people that was just that was able to go, here we go, this now looks like gold. It doesn't look like a yellowy simulation. You know, and what I mean by that is, though they are fantastic paint jobs, everything that was lauded as being amazing non-metal metallics at that time, from early 2000s to about 2010, was all the confrontation and Ragnar miniatures, if you're familiar with those.
Oh yes, very much so.
Now, for anybody that isn't familiar with those, I suggest you go and get familiar with those. And if you can get hold of all the old Cry Havoc magazines and the Rackham catalogues, you will get yourself a wealth of painting knowledge, examples of amazingly painted miniatures in just an array of races, styles, everything. It's mind-boggling how good the Rackham stuff is.
Yep.
But it was all painted in this non-metal metallic way, which is kind of where that non-NMM, non-metal metallic phrase comes from, that little period. That's what it kind of all came down to. But yeah, none of it really looked like shiny, polished gold.
Right.
It all looked like illustrated, stylized, artistic. Illustrated, I think, is the best term. Illustrated gold. And not that wasn't effective, you know, it fit into what they do, but it just didn't have that real edge. You know, how do we make it look real? Now, like I said, you know, there's a handful of people doing it at that time, but generally it would be done on weapons. It'd be done on trim. It'll be done as salt and pepper. It'll be done as garnish. So when the Blood Angels were re-released, 2009, 2008, 2009, 2000. Yeah, I think I'm getting my own dates wrong, but yeah, around about that time, late 2010s. So you had Joe Tomaszewski and Darren Latham also working on. They'd been doing it earlier because the studio works a couple of years before any releases. But so Joe Tomaszewski did the Captain Tycho in non-metal metallics.
Yep.
And Darren did the Sanguinor in non-metal. And so those guys appeared at that time, and we got samples early at Games Workshop back in those days. So I was working before the release as well on my one. Now that model, actually, I was learning as I painted it. So the bottom half is painted with a different mindset and a different approach as the top half. I don't think you can really see in those pictures though. But the bottom of his foot, the sole of his raised foot, is actually my favourite bit. Because that's one of my earlier methods of painting non-mets while I was developing it and learning it. And then as I was working up the entire model, playing with different ideas, I had a penny drop moment, which was, I can just paint the reflections of the room on as I see them. So when you look at the back of the backpack, you see one big major bloom highlight at the top, a smaller one at the bottom, one at the left, one at the right, in like a diamond shape.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the ceiling in the old Games Workshop Manchester store. That's literally me sat under the lights, and that's the ceiling reflected on it. So I just copied it straight on. So simple, but not easy.
Right.
See what I mean? So it was pivotal for me professionally. It was pivotal for me in my journey of learning and developing non-mets. And yeah, if I hadn't painted that, and in fact, if the manager of the store at the time hadn't let me paint that, it's like 40 hours work,
Sure.
And I think that's pretty quick. I think for a model of that standard.
Oh, absolutely, it is. Yeah, it's amazing for 40 hours actually.
Well, that's the beauty of doing things simply. I didn't realize this at the time, But let me come back to Tim Prow.
Sure.
Tim Prow. That's where non-mets start. Tim Prow. And so the first Captain Tycho model, I can't remember what number White Dwarf it was. But yeah, the first Captain Tycho way back in the early 90s, that was done in non-mets. I remember the painting guide. It stuck in my memory. Snakebite leather was still the colour even back then. Tim Prow was the first, but even then, non-mets was. In fact, pull this out. I think this is before. So, I believe that non-mets and metallics can be mixed. You can have non-mets on a model and metallics on a model.
Right, which I 100% agree with. I've always said that. Yep.
I'm looking now at the model I'm about to use as an example of early non-mets, and it's there. But anyway, let's pull you over. This guy.
Yep.
You see, and you'll see on some of my ultramarine stuff, this Crux Terminatus there, that's not Mets.
Right.
When's this from? This White Dwarf 146. People think it's 1992.
Right.
Now when you look at it in this context here, this is quite an advanced paint job for the time as well. And I still believe, like at the time, Tim Prow is still one of the best of the heavy metal team technically. That's just a sterling paint job.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's clearly borrowing from it because it's on a 2D quote unquote surface, right? So it's the image on the banner.
Yeah.
And so it felt like the natural jump. And it's funny because when you held the page up, the opposing side page. This is the funny part to me about it. So like literally on the other, on the facing page of the image you just showed. Yeah, like under your hand right now is the Warhammer logo. Okay. Like it's just off on the corner. Yeah, there. And like the Warhammer logo for Coventry Warhammer Day is done in that illustrative non-met style on a 2D surface, right? Yeah, exactly. Yes, the chrome, that we think of, like it's all around us all the time, right?
All
and
the
was
time.
for years.
Yeah. But even on models, it's been all around us all the time.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, this idea in non-mets is not an early 2000s thing. It's been around for a long, long time, and I suppose it was in me innately when I think about it, because I didn't know until I started leaving Games Workshop and branching out into the world of Cool Mini or Not, which was the thing back then. If you weren't on Cool Mini or Not, then you weren't going anywhere, pretty much. Cool Mini. I loved those days. That was fantastic. There was so much to learn. There was so much to learn about miniatures outside of Games Workshop, inside of Games Workshop. It was just amazing. The Cool Mini or Not days. I don't ever go there anymore, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, it's not the same place, is it?
No, I mean that's just it. The world is now, I suppose it's probably Instagram. But okay, I want to swap over here. And I want to talk a little about then where we are, the continued journey, because we started talking about NMM. So I flipped over to some of the model pictures you sent along to me. And this feels like the exact right time to transition into talking about your Knight Incantor, who's up on the screen right now. So the Stormcast Knight Incantor guy that you did here in NMM. I remember seeing this guy, and I remember the predicate for this, or at least around this time, you were talking a lot about non-metallic and your rules for it and how you think of it and deconstruct it and stuff like that. So what was the story behind this Knight Incantor? Behind it's this guy, right? Behind this guy.
It's just a top model and I wanted to paint him. It's as simple as that, and there's actually there's a precursor to him, which is Severin.
Okay.
Severin Steel Art.
Yep.
So here they both are. Again, I don't know how well this is going to come up on camera, but I'm going to do my best for you.
All good.
There we go. Let's pull my little lamp down. So there we go. So you've got Severin and whoever this fella is. We'll call him Aged Severin.
There you go.
Severin Ascended, or something like that. So I am lucky enough to be asked to look after certain Games Workshop stores when Games Workshop need help. And when I do that, I generally take a project with me. And if I don't have a project with me to paint while I go and look after a store, I'll buy one.
Sure.
Or if there's a current release, for example, it was Warhammer Underworlds or Shadespire at the time that I did Severin. If there's a current release, then I'll sit in store and I'll paint that, and it triggers conversations with customers because I'm sat there painting something relevant. So anyway, I actually painted Severin first, and I really wanted to get an old silver effect on him. I don't know if you've ever seen silver cutlery that's not polished. It starts to get a lot of noise on it, a lot of really fine. Sure. It's kind of like got a rosy feel to it. It doesn't look as silver as you might think. There's a little like warm yellowness to all the silver cutlery, and like there's something in me just kind of wanted to capture that. Now, I don't use black and white. Well, I do on the very fine highlights and on the real deep shades, tiny bits of black and white. But there's no black and white. There's no grey on this model. It's Stormhost Silver. No, not Stormhost Silver. Sorry, Storm Vermin Fur.
Got it.
So it's like brown, Storm Vermin Fur, and Blue Horror.
Yep.
And yeah, I create this soft, what I considered satisfactory result. Anyway, I sent a message to Darren Latham, and I just asked him for a bit of feedback. What do you think? What can I do? And he said, push all the shadows darker. Now, what he was aiming at was really accentuating the shine of things.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, right, okay, yeah. Now, while that change and that advice didn't satisfy my objectives as far as creating this soft silver look, what it did was it informed me then how to push contrast further.
Right.
Now, there's certain models out there in the world that are really good studies for non-mets. So if you want to develop your non-mets, there's some really good models out there that just have great shapes for studying how to place the right colors in the right places in the right proportions. Yeah, this model is one of them. It's now discontinued, so enjoy trying to find it. But this model is certainly one of them. It's filled with all sorts of amazing opportunities to develop your non-mets. Yeah, hard right angles,
Right.
geometric shapes like on the staff. You've got organic shapes like his calves. I know you can't really see it on camera, but you can go and have a look at
Yeah,
whatever
and he's
pictures
he's
you
up on the
pull up
screen
on.
right now. So
Oh, good,
everybody.
good stuff. Yeah, and you've got the lion head on his shoulder. You've got studies in skin, studies in flowy cloths, studies in crystal vials. You know what I mean? There's
Right, right.
everything on there.
Yeah,
There's,
yeah.
there's just everything.
Well, I've long argued
But
that a lot of these Stormcast characters like this are actually excellent for this sort of thing, just
yeah,
because of the
yeah,
surfaces and the
absolutely,
textures that are on them. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, but him in particular, because there's so much on him, including skin, including leather for his gloves,
Yep.
you know, including flowy robe. He's not a one-trick pony. There's
Right.
facial hair, space for tattoos. Do you see what I mean? There's everything on him. There's space for OSL. There's space for gemstones. There's space for freehand, which I don't do. There's space for texture. There's space for everything. There's not a thing that can't be done on that model.
Yep.
Yeah. Orc skin. There you go. You can't do orc skin on him. Well, you could do, I suppose. You're
Nice.
painting like
Dead
an
orc
orc.
on the base. There you
Yeah.
go. Done and dusted. Now you've got it all in there.
Exactly. So it's just all there on that model. So I'm looking after another Games Workshop store. So there it is. There's my new project, and let's put this advice into practice, and let's start developing it. Camera keeps falling over, and I don't know why. Well, I
All
do
right.
know why. I think it's broken, but there you go. So yeah, what was my objective then by painting this new model? Well, it was, can I make it look as convincingly polished as possible? So if I was to critique non-Mets that I put in front of me, which is something I have to do because I've been a judge at Salute for a number of years, and I get to see non-Mets of whatever variety. And I'd say most people they don't do the blooms of light appropriately enough. They always do what I say, regardless of how technically good painters are. They always do what I say, what I call, they paint themselves out of space.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So all them final highlights, while it's impressive and technically difficult to make them as small as possible, you don't want them small. Well, not in every case do you want them small. Like
Right.
take the shine of my baldy head now. It's actually quite diffused and quite large. So
Oh, believe
can
me,
you
I understand.
create, you know? So I need something to prop this thing up. Right, here we go. No. Warlord Titan, come here. No, it's falling off its base. All right, Golden Demon, come here. And I prop my phone up so it doesn't fall over.
You're good.
Hey.
Look at that. Just so many uses for a golden demon. There you go.
He might be too tall. There we go. Let's get. Oh, I could sit on his forearms. Oh, brilliant. There's a picture moment if ever I've seen it. So the phone is now rested on his
Yeah,
arms.
yeah, on this, yeah.
Stay there, phone. That'll learn you. Brilliant. Um, so yeah, that model was not just an inspiring model to me, but it satisfied a lot of criteria that I wanted to develop myself with. So there's good advice for people. Paint something that inspires you. That'll give you an objective to develop a new skill set.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know what? Again, I talk to a lot of students. They'll go like, "Oh, what can I paint that will help me develop X?" And I can't answer. Well, I can answer, but it doesn't mean they'll love it.
Right.
And it's rare I get a student come back with an example of bam, and yeah, I loved it. Rarely does that happen. In fact, I'm not sure if it's ever really happened. In fact, no, I've got one student, Damien, recently, or Damon, should I say. He is painting a lot of retro orcs, and I know he's loving it because he keeps picking them up. And not that I don't recommend retro orcs, but I just haven't recommended retro orcs to him, and he's loving it, and his skills are coming on really quick. In fact, I've got a few students that we are working on some things with, but these things are moving slowly right now. So we can't say that these projects are finished, but Damon's definitely getting through projects pretty quick because he's choosing stuff he loves in alignment with an objective.
Yeah, that's just it. If you're painting what you actually love, not only will you find it more enjoyable of a process, and you'll be willing to go farther with it because you love the thing and want to see it turn out well, whatever's image is in your mind, but also there's going to come a point where potentially your brain wants to stop working, stop learning, stop trying. And when you're painting something you're truly interested in, you truly love, a model that really is compelling to you, you'll push through that, right? Because you love what you're doing with the thing. If you're doing it as a task, you won't, right? You just won't push through.
Yeah, and what you'll end up doing is you'll end up doing that. You'll end up assigning or linking or intermeshing or weaving in that attitude of apathy in with your painting, and you really don't want to do that. You don't want to create the habit and association of apathy in your hobby.
Right.
Don't do it. Choose something you love. Don't let me choose. Don't ask me to choose. Choose the one you love. I could go, here's a bunch of amazing studies on non-Mets. I could say that. I could give you a list. But if the one that inspires you is this one and it's not on my list, and I go, it probably shouldn't go on the list, you choose that one, man. Like, bollocks to what I say. Right. Like, choose the one that sets you on fire from there. Because that's the right answer. Yeah, it doesn't matter who I am or what I think. If that's the one that excites you, that's the one you do. And you develop it. You develop your skills. If you want to emulate my skills, for example, in not Mets, do it on the one you love, not the one I recommend. You know, and I could give you a bunch of real solid. These are dead certs. There's not just my opinion that these are really good models, but still choose the one that excites you.
Absolutely. All right.
Still choose it. More important.
I want to jump to your next model you sent along because I think we're going to get an interesting connective tissue here, but I'll let you tell the story behind this model. So the next model that I flipped over to here is your Space Wolf. So the old school Space Wolf with the double banner, the raised chain sword, right, and his bolt pistol. Now, okay, as longtime viewers of this channel will know, I have a deep and unending hatred for Space Wolves, and that's only because I started playing Warhammer 40k in 3rd edition and got consistently my teeth kicked down my throat by Space Wolves. So when you lose to them all the time...
8 attacks does Ragnar having those old rules. He's hard as nails, and that's basic, man.
Yeah,
go on.
It was all my poor little Imperial Guard were just getting wrecked constantly. So it scarred me for life. But this is undoubtedly a very fun, very beautiful model. So take us through this guy. What's the story behind here?
my first thoughts when you started saying was he's no mere space wolf. That's Ragnar Blackmane. That's the original Ragnar Blackmane, not this dark-haired imposter. Yeah, that people have created because numbskulls don't understand. He's not called Blackmane because he's got black hair. It's called
Sure.
Blackmane because of what he did. It's more of a title than his surname, you know, because he slew the Blackmane wolf with his bare hands. But yeah, Ragnar. He was an inspirational character to me as a kid, as a teenager. So, I mean, a lot of people don't know, but there is hair, and at one point it was long, it was long and it was blonde. And I had an affinity. Again, there's a Megadeth link in here. Dave Mustaine. I absolutely loved Dave Mustaine as a kid. Long blonde hair, not in a weird way, but in a
No,
role
no, I
model
get it.
way.
Yeah, of
Now,
course.
Batman, long blonde hair, I just, he was a space Viking with long blonde hair. You just don't get to see that like, as a teenager and as a male, long blonde haired men are not your stereotypical role model.
Sure.
And I was a kid with long blonde hair. I wanted to play guitar and I wanted to do space wolfy type things. I was, even if I was quiet, I was a little bit of a nutter at the same time. I wanted to do, I want, yeah. Well, if you're gonna put a bike under me and say go down that hill as fast as you can, I'm gonna do it. Hit that jump as fast as you can, I'm gonna do it. Climb that tree, cross that frozen lake. Yeah, I'll do it. Like which we did one time, and that was scary. But yeah, if there's something stupid to do, I generally would have had a go. Or something daring, not stupid. We'll call it daring.
There you go. Yeah, I like
And,
that
and
better.
and yeah, well, I mean, the original model by Jez Goodwin and the stories by Bill King, combined just with the rest of the Space Wolf range and the feel, man, they're just filled with action, aren't they? Space Wolves are just filled with action. There's action in the faces, action in the poses, action in the stories. It's just action. Cool names, they're exotic, if you will. Not obviously tropical exotic, but they're foreign to us all, essentially. And Ragnar was different compared to all the other chapter masters, company masters, blah blah blah. In that he was young.
Gotcha.
Everything about Ragnar is different. He's young. He's got two back banners. He's not got one. He's got two.
Right?
Do you see what I mean? And everything about him was just different. And I said earlier on, I always felt, even in painting circles, set aside. Ragnar to me stands aside for every Space Marine. He's set aside, and he also got his hair color retconned, which sets him aside again. Do you know what I mean? How many people got the hair color retconned?
Right, right.
I got mine retconned to bald. So yeah, Ragnar was massively important. Another thing I tried to do in school when I was in art was I tried to copy his banners. I tried to paint them on paper,
Sure.
but as a larger study.
Yep.
It became more of an art thing for me. Like just everything about him. I won't say I was obsessed, but I was fascinated. It was a cool model. Jez Goodwin did an amazing sculpt. I think it was Mike McVey did an amazing paint job. A lot of the ideas of how to blend paint back in the day come from me understanding of, or me reading of old Citadel Miniatures painting guides. I don't know if you remember the red pamphlet version.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what's one of the earliest, most vague descriptions of how to blend acrylic paint on a model ever. But, that's what we had to work with back then, which I think is why a lot of old school painters like myself, David Soper, blah, blah, blah. I think there's an innate understanding about how to paint to a top end in us because we had to figure it out ourselves. because we understand mistakes better than anyone else.
Sure.
Everyone else is trying to watch YouTube videos to avoid making mistakes. You're going to avoid not learning how to fix them.
Yeah,
You're going
sure.
to avoid.
Failure is the most powerful teaching tool you're going to have ever.
Well, I mean, is it most powerful or is it just as powerful? Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because it depends what you want to do. Because in one context, making a mistake is something you don't want. But in another context, that same action and that same result, if you chose it, it's not like a mistake.
Sure.
So how powerful is it? Do you know what I mean? How powerful is it? How useful is it? Well, it all depends on where you allow it to happen or choose for it to happen.
Yeah. Did you decide to do it, or did it happen to you? Right.
Yeah, but I use the word allow deliberately because some mistakes you can allow to happen, and they create a happy accident. Then then it stays because you allow it,
Sure. No, that's fair.
and there's its use again. Some things you allow because you don't know better or because you can't be asked, and you deem mistakes, and it could be the same action, same result. And starting to understand this on a deeper level, but it's the value is always in the result, really. Proof's in the pudding, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you don't make more mistakes and understand which ones create value, but also the mechanic to get there, whether it's value or not, that's what I think a lot of old school pre-YouTube painters they have that. We have
Gotcha.
that. I'm going to say it. I'm going to wear it with pride. We have that because I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I'm absolutely not afraid. I don't care, because I know how to prevent it. If I don't know how to prevent it, I know how to eliminate it. If I don't know how to eliminate it, I know how to incorporate it.
I like that.
Where's the risk?
Right.
Where's the risk? Do you know what I mean? So if I'm trying to paint a model clean, no battle damage, no noise, no this, not that, or the other, I'm going to work on prevention first. If I do make a mistake, which is inevitable, there's a tiny group of people on this planet that don't make mistakes in painting, right? And they are amazing painters, like so rare, yeah. And I pretty much say a lot of them are on the heavy metal team. That's how that. And when you take that percentage, that's not even 0.5% of the world of painters. It's so tiny. And if you all aspire to that, go for it. But you've got to do it without pressure yourself, because you'll just drive yourself freaking insane. Yeah, I don't know, because I've been there. Because that's another skill set as well. By the way, is the mindset. To develop is one of minimal mistakes, but it shouldn't become a pressure, shouldn't be something to beat yourself up over.
Right.
It's part of the journey, and it'll just start to integrate in there. But again, if you make that your only goal, then you miss out on how to eliminate mistakes.
Right.
Yeah, which if I want a clean paint job and I wasn't able to prevent, then I need to work on elimination. Yeah, whether that be remove it or paint it out.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the mistake stays there, it just gets covered over. Yeah. So whichever way you want to choose, And then as you get into that clean sort of way, you start to meet people online that are like, oh, I like it gritty and real. And, it knocks your ego a little bit, maybe. Or you're curious as to, right, how can I improve or explore different avenues in painting? And then you start to get into painting in the fuck smoothness style, or the Blanchitsu style, or the gritty and real style, or the weathered and forge world style, or blah blah blah. All of which I've explored. So what that then starts to become is, I describe it to my students as, you're not trying to paint anything right. You're trying to paint it very wrong and only remove what doesn't serve you.
Sure. I like that.
So
Yeah.
you essentially put anything on there, fuck it. But that one looks good. Cool, we'll keep that one.
Right.
Yeah, more. There's another one that looks good. We'll keep that one. Yeah, and either you remove or you just keep moving it around until something looks cool. Yeah, and that's this more painterly approach. Textures allowed if it looks cool. It's not a green card, which some people think it is, just to splat anything, anywhere, anyhow you want. Because that, like, not everything communicates the message you want it to.
Right.
Which is why, you get artists like John Blanche there. There's not a line out of place, regardless of
Right.
how much scribble or ink splattered. It's there because he wants it there.
Yeah.
It's not there because he put it there necessarily deliberately. He allowed it to be there because it contributed to the noise he's creating in your head, which is really what expressive painting is about. It's about creating noise upstairs.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull right back now to Ragnar.
Okay.
I challenge anyone to have a silent mind when looking at that Ragnar model.
I like that. I like the way you're phrasing that. I really do. I don't know that a lot of people think in those exact terms, but I really enjoy it. And I think you're exactly right because of what's happening there, because of the action, the composition, because of the nature of the piece, the colors on display, the way that things are integrated together. There's just a lot going on for you to take in a relatively small space, and it's compelling, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good way to phrase that.
Thank you. Well, I mean, these are all the things like I've learned through teaching so many people. I've taught hundreds and maybe even thousands of people now, and I took note. So in the first few students I ever taught, I took notes for every lesson. I took notes because I started to see a funny pattern because I taught painters at a top end. Like either before they'd won demons or after they'd won demons, people come at me for lessons, which was very humbling at first. Like I was like, "Oh, fuck, you've come here to see me," but painters at that level know why they're there, so I've got to trust that, and I've learned to trust that a lot more recently. Painters at a bottom end, beginners, shit painters, intermediate painters, whatever, I've taught them as well. And what I started to realize was, hang on a minute, I'm teaching both these sets of people, all sets of people, the same thing
Right.
again and again. I'm not teaching these guys beginner stuff, low standard stuff, easy stuff, blah, blah, blah. I'm teaching them exactly the same stuff I'm teaching these more advanced painters. And I'm not teaching them advanced stuff, technical stuff, hard stuff. It's just the stuff. It's just painting.
Right.
Yeah. There's not a divide. You could choose to see a divide if you want, but there isn't a divide. Yeah. Maybe there's one in resolution and time and attention, but these aren't painting techniques.
Right.
See
Right.
what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, Ragnar. Hang on a minute, I've got myself lost here. Recap me again.
No, you're okay. We were talking about you. You mentioned that with Ragnar, you don't have a silent mind when you're looking at it because there's a lot of visual information
Okay, yeah.
that's being communicated.
Yeah. All right, so Ragnar is not my most technically painted piece. The blends aren't smooth, especially if you look on his shin pads. Let's have a deep dive. The blends aren't smooth. Who cares? Because I'm creating noise in your mind. The only person to ever pull me on the areas of that model that are not painted, which I bet nobody's seen, the only person was a judge at Golden Demon who gave me a Golden Demon for it, even though it's got areas that are not painted at all. And it still won me a Golden Demon in the staff category against other heavy metal painters.
Nice.
So that counts for something. Now, I don't know really what they think of it, but I know the heavy metal painter in question came back and gave me personal advice. He sought me out to give me advice, which is amazing, by the way.
Nice.
But for a judge to care enough about the people that enter their competition to come back and go, I want to give you feedback, that means something to me. and I'm sure I'm not the only one that they did that to. So I'm not singling
No, Golden
myself out.
Demon has always been pretty great about the judges giving feedback. That's actually one of the big, like, truly one of the things that's always stood it apart.
Mm-hmm. So that to me was amazing, and the fact that he spotted those things and was able to tell me in a great way, that meant a lot to me. Now, the other reason it meant a lot is because that model wasn't painted for competition. It was painted purely for my own passion, for Space Wolves, for Ragnar, for converting, for creating a model that doesn't look like a conversion. You know, we only know it's a conversion because, well, the model doesn't exist as a product.
Right.
You know? It's not an obvious conversion, you know, and that's a bit of a thing of mine. I just want to steer it back to the noise thing again. So I make your mind move how I want it to move how I want it to move. Yeah, with that model. Yeah. Now here's the other thing: is I don't. It's hard to say. So I want your mind to move in a very particular way when I show you a piece.
Sure.
But I don't choose what way. Yeah. So for example, you know Ragnar's very angry at somebody, but I don't tell you who.
Right.
So what that does is you put your favorite person to be angry at there. I don't choose who should be in front of Ragnar. So whoever Ragnar's fighting is the person you prefer, is the person you've chosen. If I put, say, Chaos Berserker there, I've immediately cheapened it. I've narrowed the spectrum of which somebody would tell a story.
Sure.
Because I'm telling it to you. I'm saying, no. Don't use your imagination in this space. I'm saying, Khorne Berserker. But there isn't. I leave the space open for you. That Ragnar's fighting whoever you want. But you also know how he feels when you look at whoever it is you've now imagined him fighting. So I tell a story, but I don't tell you what story. I let you tell you what story. And I create opportunities. And I do that, and I try and do that with every brushstroke now, by the way. Which is some of that. I spent a weekend with a student last weekend, and he had half a day on that idea, if you will.
Nice.
You know, well, because you hear this idea about expressive painting.
Yep.
Well, you can marry the two, technical and expressive, which I think I do pretty well. You know, so like there's no real story on the base of me knighting Cantor, but there's a lot going on that model.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And
speaking of
painting,
that, I flipped over here to, which I think might connect to this. I flipped over to your Lord of Plagues, Blights. I don't remember which one he is. Your Nurgle Lord that you sent me.
Yeah. Unusual model.
What's that?
He's an unusual model for me, that guy.
So, well, that's what I wanted to talk about with this one, because you mentioned as you talked into this, creating the narrative and the story and things like that. This model stood out to me because it feels different than what you often paint, but yet there's very much still narrative in the paint here that's happening between the setting you've chose to put this guy in, the colors you've chose to use, the way you've chose to weather it and work with him, the additional details that you've added, those kinds of things. So is that kind of where you were going with this guy? He's also very textured, very, like, there's a lot of story being told through the brush work here in this model.
Do you know what? I'd like to hear what is going through your head when you look at him. Like, what are those stories like in your assumption?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm happy to share with you what I see. I'm happy to share with you what I see. So, obviously, he's in a cold setting, right? So we've got the snow on the ground and the little Nurglings playing in the snow and stuff like that with the one with the sensor. And what's fascinating to me about him is you've actually kept the weathering, the rust, that kind of thing, relatively, the oxidation, relatively minimal. Like, it's there, but it's not overwhelming. And I have to believe that's because of the nature of the environment that he finds himself in. Like, he's not in some moist, wet environment. He's in a dry, cold environment. So the weapons are still rusted because it's Nurgle, but they're not made of rust. There's still plenty of cold steel on display. And at the same time, the green of his skin, even though it's green, is still a very cold green. So it fits in with the overall environment. And we've picked out a lot of texture on him, almost like bumps, almost like goosebumps to an effect. Again, selling the sort of environmental study. But the wounds, those open, hot wounds, are still sort of shown in that red pink, and there. So those are the things that jump out to me immediately. How does that read to you? Any of that what you were intending?
Well, what's interesting is it's almost like you gave a technical analysis to a degree.
Sure.
Which was nice. Because this model was a study to a degree in using pointillism.
Sure.
But also I painted it because I was pissed off. So I can't remember where I got the idea from. Somebody had said something to me about something or other, that maybe I wasn't as flexible a painter as other painters. You know, I have a very particular style. If Tommie were just to paint how Tommie wants to paint, I have a very particular style, which is very comic booky, which I love. You know, and while I can chop and change my styles and apply it to different things, that's my default. You know, now I don't really like painting evil. I don't like chaos. I don't like, you know, I'm not really into it. But when it comes to that model, there's something about it. It's quite understated, that model. So it appealed to me, but it appealed to me as a good opportunity to explore what I can apply my own style to.
Okay.
That's outside of my own wheelhouse. So that starts to inform then why the verdigris is understated. Yeah, you know, while the colours are still quite, the colours are obvious, but they're also really strong in their own right. You know, and nothing overwhelms anything else. Everything is still within my in my ballpark, as much as I tried to step it out. Do you see what I mean? So
yep.
I like clean metals, you know, but I knew I had to verdigrize them. But I didn't really want to take them so rough and so ready that they started to look like they need weathering powders. You know, like I didn't really want to take it out of my wheelhouse, but I needed to bring something into my wheelhouse that was outside of the normal subjects.
Yep.
See what I mean?
I do.
You know, which a Nurgle guy is. I don't normally do a lot of blood effects. I don't normally do a lot of gibletty effects. I don't normally do, you know, a lot of things like that. And if I do it's just because I felt like it at the time. So, like, for example, on my Instagram, I posted a picture recently of Severin and the back of my Land Raider.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I absolutely saw this picture. Yep.
You know, and I asked the question, what's my style? Because now a lot of people don't get this. The same techniques are used on both models. There's different results of what people assume in the technique.
Right.
It's not. There's a brushstroke like this, and there's a brushstroke like that. I use both them brushstrokes on both models to get both of them different results. I use different colours, but that doesn't change the technique.
Right.
I use the brushstrokes in different places, but that doesn't change the technique. But I produce different results. And I really hope to get that through to some people who are listening. In fact, if I could get it through to everybody, I really would do. But I've got two brushstrokes, one that goes like that and one that goes like that. And that's all I did to get both results within a ballpark. This time's a chop and change. Yeah, but in a nutshell, in a simple way as I could put it, I use two different types of brushstroke. I load the brush the same. Yeah, I load it with the same kind of paint. I set the consistency the same. There's varying degrees of consistency, but I use those same varying degrees across those same different brush strokes and across
Right.
those same two
Right.
models. The technical, as in the mechanic of it, does not change. Colors changed. Where I put the colors changed, and I did that to achieve two different results. All right. So there's times I like to play with me abilities, and like that, I chose that Space Wolf Land Raider as an example. Like my Space Wolf army's clean, so I just paint. And then one day I was like, oh, I want something all messy and splatty and this, that, and the other. I just decided to see if I could paint this guy in a comic book style, but using zero of those. Well, not zero necessarily, but adding in more complexity to create more texture and communicate different ideas than I'd normally communicate,
Okay.
essentially. So there you go. I
Gotcha.
can't remember why I put him on snow, I don't know why he's on snow. I mean, so there's some blood splatter going up the stairs behind him, from the heads on top. Maybe I chose snow because it shows up blood. There's actually I painted the reflection of the snow on the undercarriage of the Nurgling going upstairs. I don't know if it shows in the picture, but I quite enjoyed doing that as well. But I wouldn't have thought of that until I went to paint under his ass cheeks and going, oh, do you know, I could put the snow reflected under there. It wouldn't have been something I planned,
Sure.
you know. And another reason is like this space, and I'm only speculating on my thoughts now and why I did this. But this space here is really empty, and I think somebody might have asked me how to do icicles at one point, and maybe I went like, oh, we'll fill that space there with icicles just so I can show this person how to do icicles, and snow came from that because icicles is rarely a thing I do as well, but uh, they're done with blister pack, by the way, and lots of gloss varnish.
Nice.
So cut some blister pack into icicle shaped. Obviously it's just a two-dimensional sheet then, isn't it?
Sure.
Then just fill out the dimensions with gloss varnish, same way you'd like dip a candle to make a candle. So yeah, I hope
Nice.
that answers your question a little bit.
It does very much. I think this guy's a great model to paint. I think he's a wonderful character study. I think he's another one of those sort of standout models that you can do a lot of really great stuff with. Darren, when he was doing his
Yeah,
channel, did this model, right, as
yeah,
his masterclass pick. And I just think it's again, it's one of those models where you've got a lot going on and a lot of interesting things to work with.
hmm,
Wood, leather, metals, flesh, disease,
yeah, yeah,
armor plates, bone, rotten flesh,
yeah,
blood, copper and other metals, rust, verdigris, like on and on and on and on and on, right? Like there's just a
hmm,
million things you
yeah,
can explore with this one model. He's a
yeah,
tremendous canvas. So,
yeah. He is, and that's exactly what I tried to do as well. Yeah, you're right. So, you mentioned the leather. I decided to do it like I did some cross hatching on it.
right.
To insinuate a rough fabric, on his loincloth back and front. Yeah, I really tried to insinuate varicose veins. Yeah, soreness. I really wanted people to think sore when they look at his belly,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. And yeah, you're right. It is. It's just something to explore. Wood grain. There's another one.
Yep.
I've got to thank David Soper for giving me the little baubles that bubble out of his
Oh yeah,
mouth.
the goop out of his mouth, yeah.
Yeah. And then I have to thank Dave Neild, because while we were at my house, he was showing me this is from a long time ago, this 10 years, if not maybe more. Um, yeah, we used hair, we dangled hair
Yep.
from a model and red ink, gloss varnish, and just
Yeah, to
built
do
up
the
a little
blood
tank
drips.
on it.
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of things on it that pulled inspiration from. Again, David Soper actually. Though to clarify, David Soper's work's not it's not pointillist. This was my assumption around David Soper style on the areas I chose to do it was a pointillist approach. And David Soper actually scribbles, which is beautiful, because scribbling infers a lack of control and freedom. But I don't think there's a more controlled painter out there. That
Oh
guy
right.
is
Yeah.
control. And if you ever get to see his work in the flesh, you'll see how in control it is, you know. But that's that thing I was talking about earlier on, actually, about the marriage of technical and painterly.
Right.
Can you bring them together? And what can you start to create then? And that's a case of mastering both sides of the scale, you know.
So speaking of working out, like in marrying these two things together and mashing this out, I flipped to the bust. So our pirate orc bust here, who we could see in the background of you there in the early part. So, what is it about this model, this guy, that drew you in, that made you want to do the bust, that made you want to do this bust in particular?
Look at him, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so like the one touch I've got. In fact, let me reverse. We as painters stand on the shoulder of giants. Those giants are called sculptors, and rarely do sculptors get the praise they deserve. All right. My paint job on that model would be nothing if that model wasn't sculpted so well.
Yeah, it's truly an exceptional sculpt. Yes.
All right. It is an exceptional sculpt. All right. And it's from Marauder Miniatures. For those that want to know, I'm not sure if you can get it anymore, but if I could say to him, do another run, I would do. And if anybody knows him, please say that I put that request in. But I'm going to give him a quick dust off now, so I can make sure we're on the same page when we have a talk about him. Now, again, I wanted to paint him for a couple of reasons. One, I very rarely do busts. Two, scaling up 28 and 30 mil painting to bust scale is not easy.
Right.
Or rather, it's not something I'm familiar with. Because if you start on that scale bust and scale down, I'm sure they would say it's not easy in the other way. So it's not something I'm familiar with, and I wanted to become familiar with it, essentially. And there's so much character in this model that I just wanted to know how I could enhance it, which is why I brought up the idea earlier on that we stand on the shoulders of giants, which are the sculptors. As a painter who is always wishing to progress and explore his skill set in whichever variety, you know, knowing I've got a solid default, if you will.
Sure.
But as a painter who wishes to explore, and I think this should be acknowledged hobby wide. I'm just going to take a moment and be careful about what I say, because I don't wish to offend anybody. I really don't like none of what I say is ever intended to be elitist. So if I'm just going to say it, and you've had that prefix. So a sculptor creates a model of whatever nature. I said earlier on, nobody chooses to do a shit paint job.
Right.
Everybody chooses to do an excellent paint job. It's my job as a painter to, at the very least, not make that sculpt shitter. It's my job to enhance. Yeah, at least keep it just as good or enhance from where the sculptor left off. And the reason I was being a little bit careful about not offending anybody is that, like, in a way that looks like it's taking away from people who can't paint very well, and they really don't intend for that to be the case. But I aspire to at least not make a sculpt look worse than it is.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, there's people who love painting at all levels, and it's all valid, man. I hope I've communicated that in the right way, because I properly care about that, by the way.
No, absolutely. You have. Yes.
So that model is so good. It's so good. Like, where could I possibly make an improvement on it? Now, I didn't know until I painted it, but I also didn't know I had lessons to learn when I painted it as well. And this is really where me and colour theory start to, we'll say, communicate.
Okay.
Right. And really, this is where I really start to explore colour theory. Because I didn't know I had to. Don't really care for it, believe it or not. I don't like. Though I do use it, I have a very different way of looking at it than most people. Every person, in fact, maybe. I've rubbed some people up the wrong way on the old internet with my views on that, but whatever. But this model is a study in that, in my way of looking at colour theory, and I think it works. Like, because what a lot of people don't understand is that, or know, is I'm actually colorblind.
Okay.
So when I meet people who are colorblind, I don't care. Like, there's people who go, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm colorblind. Oh, I'm colorblind. This, it's not right. There's ways around it if you're willing to explore. And I've taught a few people. One of which runs a army painting studio at Games Workshop now. So
Nice.
the world is your lobster. So if you want to know, get in touch. But so I'm colorblind, and anyway, regardless of that, this guy's a study in contrast. Contrast is more important than color theory. Why? Because contrast is the reason color theory exists. It's not the other way around. Color theory is just that, a theory. All right. For example, let's just take a color wheel. For those that don't know, it goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, red. Yeah, in a circle. Which, by the way, you won't find out in nature. That's something we made.
Right, sure.
All right. Now, while nature might move in this spiral kind of way, when this color comes right back around to red, the red won't be the same red on a rainbow. Yeah, you'll see it in a rainbow and light shone through a prism, but it might go back through a different red, but it's called infrared. It's a different red, and on to infinity, both directions. Yeah, it doesn't come back down to the same red. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
It does.
All right, so we made the color wheel. So that means we put red opposite green. Now, if red opposite green is what's known as a complementary color, example 1, and you're kind of telling me that I should like it. That combination, in whatever way, I should like it. It's complementary. It should work. I'm not right with that. I don't have to like nothing somebody says I have to like.
Sure.
So the word complementary doesn't sit right with me. It's not complementary. So, because I don't have to like it, you don't have to like it, nobody here has to like it, and nobody here has to agree with anything I have to say. So, complementary is a matter of opinion. So, what's the next bit? Well, it's contrasting color. Yeah, it's contrasting color. All right, okay. So, red contrast green. Why? Why? Why does red contrast green? Because we
Right,
put
well,
it opposite.
I'll offer the answer. Like I'll offer a simple answer, but then because their wavelengths are at opposite
Right
places.
answer.
What's that?
Go on, sorry, mate. Say again. Sorry, I started waffling.
Because in the light spectrum, their wavelengths are opposites. So like red, in visible light spectrum, a perfectly red surface reflects 0 green light. Right? Now, of course, that's not actually reality. We don't live in a world where we have real reds and real greens. Everything reflects a bit of everything. But if you could make some platonic form of red, it would reflect 0 green out of it. So, okay, there you go. How's that?
So that's very interesting because you're actually dealing with two different ideas. You're dealing with the idea of projected light from a light source and reflected light from a physical thing.
Sure.
Two of which can be very different things and can be communicated in different ways. Like, for example, you mix all the frequencies of light together from a projected source, you get white light. You take a color wheel and you spin it so all the physical colors mix, that you get white again. But you do that in paint on a palette, you get black.
Right.
Yeah. So there's an idea of contrast straight away. Energetic photons of light create white. Physical pigments of goo, of physical matter create black. An idea of contrast. I think it's a beautiful poetic thing. But as simple as you made that, it's actually still quite scientific-y. There's a convolution to it.
Sure.
It's still not as simple as maybe as it could or should be. And we have this idea, this color wheel again, which we made. Why? I see that there's 3 primary colors and 3 secondary colors, and if you put them in a circle, they will go in that order. Yeah, that's a beautiful piece of the nature of physics, or the physics of nature, whichever way you want to put it. But it still doesn't tell us why. Why is red contrast to green? We know why black contrasts white. I hope.
Sure.
I really hope. For those that don't know, one's light, one's dark. One's as light as possible, one's as dark as possible.
Right.
That's the perfect example of contrast. But you can't apply that to red and green. You can't apply that to blue and yellow, or cyan and yellow. Cyan and orange. You can't apply that to, so you start to ask the question then, well, why? What is it? What is this idea of color theory, and what's it built on? And it breaks down to this: primary and secondary. One is few, one is singular, the other is many, the other is plural, and it comes down to maths. Does that make sense?
It does.
Green is not a primary color. Yeah, it's a mix of colors. So your contrast is one of purity and one of mixture.
Sure.
One of single, one of plural. So when you start to use that to inform all your color choices, you don't need to be able to see color. You just need to know the difference.
Gotcha. I like it.
And that's as simple as it gets, I think. It's 1 and 2. It's 1 and 2.
That's pretty easy. It's pretty easy.
It is pretty easy. It is pretty easy. So, but it's not all there is in contrast, though, is it? I'm giving you all my secrets here, but I friggin' love it. So, color is just one ballpark of contrast.
Right, of course.
But in fact, let me just before I carry on down this little rabbit hole there, and I see you've moved forward now. You're like, I hope everyone else has gone like that as well, but I can't see what's going on in the world of Discord. Well, what was I going to say?
The different types of contrast beyond just the color.
Oh, right, yeah. So just before I move on into contrast, you've got color theory. Just the theory, like complementary, it's just an opinion. Is it useful? Is it not? All right. Now, contrast is a fact. It's a fact. There's no arguing with it. It's a fact. Some things contrast more than others, but contrast is a fact.
Sure. You put a white dot in the middle of a black screen, it contrasts more than if you put a black dot in the middle of a black screen. It's like these are fairly simple concepts.
Yeah. Now, what you just said there is beautiful. What you just said there is beautiful. And if let's play with that. Let's play with that as a prime example of how to use contrast fact to create perception. If I held up that black piece of paper with that white dot on it and I said, what do you see? You will probably say a white dot more than you would say a black piece of paper.
Right. No, it's absolutely true. Even though 99% of the piece of paper that you're looking at is a black piece of paper. Okay.
Now, what did I say earlier on about making you think what I want you to think?
Right.
There it is. If I hold up a white piece of paper with a black dot on it, you're more likely to look at the black dot and say a black dot or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Turn that black dot into 2 black dots and put a line under it, you'll say a smiley face. Yeah. But that's not really what's there.
Right.
There's so much more there. And it creates noise in your head, which we call a thought, and off you go on your little journey. Yeah, and the point is that's contrast. It's shown there to you, and it can be used to create experiences for people. That Orc Bust is a study in contrast. I'm trying to lead you somewhere. Where can you not help but look at that Orc?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's
But where?
he is
Choose someone.
basically the white dot on a black piece of paper, right? Like that, his
Yeah,
face and
but where
the
is
activity
he?
going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, where is he? Where are you looking on that Orc?
At the where am I looking? I'm looking at my eyes have a natural movement on him, which is I look right here at his face, then up to his eyes, and then follow his eyes of wherever they go.
You can't not help but involve with his eyes.
Yeah.
Like you look at that Orc, he's looking at you. Assuming you've got the picture where I've sent
I
them
do.
where he's looking at.
Yep, that's
But
exactly the one I've got up right
another
now.
one where he's looking away. It looks like he's looking away. So whichever picture you've got, I can't remember which one you sent me, but it's his
You
eye.
sent me both, so I've had both up. The one I have up right now is the one where he's looking at us.
Yeah.
So the side picture.
Now, when you've got that picture when he's looking at you, how does it make you feel?
Yeah, sure. He looks like he's. Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's giving you the side eye in not a great way.
Yeah. But that's the thing, isn't it? You've assigned an emotion to it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I want you to feel like you don't really want to be here right now.
Right.
So to bring things right back to what we're saying, how can I make that sculpt better? There was only one thing missing off that sculpt, and that was intention.
Okay.
The eye gives intention.
Yeah.
The way I've painted the eye gives intention. So let me give you an example of that. If I look at you now, like this, what's my intention? If I look at you now, like this, let's keep the same face, so I can't help but smile. So see, I've created noise in your head just by change. Now you look at any how to paint eye tutorial, they're always dead forward.
No, it reminds me of there's an old, I think it was I don't know if it was like a Simpsons joke or something, but they talked about how it was some show. I don't remember the joke. They talked about how you can make even a cute dog seem evil by having his eyes narrow and then go.
Yep.
And look to the sides repeatedly.
Yep.
And it just changes the entire read on even a cute dog, right? And that was the joke. It was that's it. That's what you got. It just changes the whole read of the situation, how humans interpret it.
Now, that's actually something I learned when the Bretonians first came out.
Okay.
You got the Robin Hood. What was he called? Bertrand Le Brigand.
Yep.
The Bretonians. I started painting the eyes, and painting the eyes, it becomes easier. It has less steps and becomes more effective as an eye the moment you paint the eye black and do a single white dot on one side of each of the eyes.
Yep.
Less work, less accuracy, less effort, massive amount of impact. Because all of a sudden, Guila Gross is standing there, not like this, but like this.
Right.
Fucking bingo. Yeah, every article's out there. Oh, you've got to paint this, and you've got to do the pupil like that, and you've got to do the whites like this, and it's just like, man, just black and white. Doesn't matter what's real and what's not. It matters about what's effective, what creates, stirs something in people. So believe it or not, the Lord in Cantor, for example, they're the eyes I like of my own the least, because I've done them too forward. And I actually painted pupil more than I did paint. I painted in pupil as opposed to paint in whites. I say pupil, iris as well, but you know what I'm on about.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I did the insides more than I did the outside, so it makes him look a little bit more starey than I like. And I actually didn't go into any more detail in his eyes on that, so his eyes are pretty flat. But I was happy, and that if I'm happy with a paint job where it's at, and I'm happy to finish, then that paint job is finished. Any lessons will be applied to the next, and forward we go.
Very nice.
You know.
All right. I
So
want to bring us
go
to I
on.
want to bring us to the end here. But I want to
Go on.
I want to give you like this has been so much you've shared. And I just want to remind everybody like I hope what's on display here is that, and then what everybody gets is that, and that you really do stand apart as someone who thinks differently about this hobby and about the way you teach and the way you communicate this information and just the way you resolve this stuff. And I want to remind everybody the link for the Kickstarter, still active but funded, is down below. And Tommie's got a whole book in there. So what I want to do here at the end is just say, what else do you want to share with everybody before we call it a night here?
Keep it simple, because that's what everything's built on. Contrast. It's one or two. It's plural or many. You know, as an example. But what we haven't really spoken about is that book. You know, I haven't spoken about what's in it, and believe it or not, I intend this book to be very practical and technical in how to start to achieve painting in these simple ways. That's the point of this book. So I've been running courses for 10 years, maybe more. Yeah, for classes of people and individual one-on-one students. You know, I've taught a lot of people of every different level. And I said earlier on that I started to realize I was teaching these people the same things in the same way, the same reasons. Again, and you just can't escape it. Can't escape it. You know, I turned it into a course which was massively successful. It almost, in fact, I don't think it's ever not sold out when I've run it. You know, I did a different version of it. It's not bad. I did do a different version of it one time, which I wasn't happy with. Yeah, it kind of got sidetracked a little bit at the beginning by one of the attendees there, so it ate up some of my time. And it was new, and I wasn't well rehearsed at it, so I didn't do that course again. But that one didn't sell out, you know. But as far as I can remember, I don't think I've ran the fundamentals course that didn't sell out. I call it the fundamentals because these are the things you can't escape. They're also the things the internet isn't teaching you. You know, so I read an article in a magazine a little while ago, 7 essential things to learn. And I read these things and I was like, man, they're just not true. You can't do any of them. You can't do any of the things without knowing how to set consistency, load the brush, and apply the brush with the right mindset and finishing more models.
Right.
So this book is, if I was to disappear off this planet, which one day I'll do, that information doesn't disappear with me. So I don't wish this book to be Tommie Soule showing off how good an artist I am. I have no desire for that. No desire at all. I don't care, because it's not important to me. Like I paint as good as I paint for me.
Right.
That's why, again, these models.
Going back to what we talked about at the very beginning. Yeah.
I do it for me. Yeah. I've done my time as a professional, whatever that means. You know, I've been very human in that experience as well. I've had my own ups and downs, emotionally, physically, professionally, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes all intermixed, and other people have had similar experiences along that road with me. And in that time, that love got hurt, and that information, as far as painting goes, got refined. And those two things, that love and that information, I really wish to be in the book more than anything else. Because if I once I'm gone, that info's gone. You know, whether I decide to change industries or whether I frigging cark it, which is going to happen at some point in the future, you know, sure. And I'd rather leave that information there, because I know it goes against the grain of the way a lot of people see painting, but that's why I think it's important it goes out. And also it frees up a lot of my own brain space.
Sure.
Because it sits in my head all the time. It's in my head. I just think, maybe I should write a book, maybe I should do a video, but I'm not really like, I'd rather teach it to everybody, like face to face, more than anything. I'll go all day, all night. I just won't stop, like hammering it into you. But Dave popped up and said, will you do this with me? And I'm just like, my first question was, why me? Because I don't think I'm that relevant, if I'm honest. That's why I said I needed buttering up a little bit, you know. So I mean, I know at one point, you know, I painted some things that got me some attention, you know, but I really need, because the last few years I've not done any peacocking, I've not done any showing off, I've not done any promoting, because I don't have anything really to promote or show off as far as like an objective goes. You know what I mean? I don't have targets to hit. I don't have commissions to win. I don't, you know, if students find me and students want to come and learn from me, then I'll let fate do all that. And if that sort of happens to coincide with me painting something and sharing it on Instagram, then nice one. Because generally I'll get a lot of students when I'm painting things and showing it a lot on
Sure.
Instagram.
Sure.
You know. But yeah, the book is about teaching people. And I'm aiming to get that done as effectively as possible in words, as if me and you are in the same space together.
Sure.
It's not going to be a lecture. It's going to be a challenge. I will challenge everybody with the book, everybody who reads it. So it's for those that want to progress and those that want to understand painting deeper, regardless. So here's one thing about the book. While my information is particular to me and the students that have learned it, it applies to every painter, whether they use my methods or not. Right? It applies to every painter. Every consistency has a signature. Every type of brushstroke has a signature. Once you learn to recognize them signatures, you won't have to ask somebody how they painted it. You'll, I see that consistency. I see that brushstroke. You don't have to ask how. It's there in front of you.
Right.
Yeah. So I take you through. I'll be taking you through the experience all my students get when they sit in this chair next to me here. Yeah. Or on the internet here, which really is, you're on another chair here, by the way. So,
Sure.
you know, yeah, any student that sits with me, I'm trying my hardest to recall every lesson I've ever had, all the stupid questions I've ever had, all the, in fact, every question I've ever had, anything. I'm really trying to cover everything I can in this experience, and deliver that as a book. And then if and when I finally get around to painting certain things and showing off a little bit more, or just photographing existing works, I'm going to do what I can, essentially.
Nice.
But it's gonna be about teaching.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Well,
I'm shitting my pants, but what?
No, it's gonna be
but
awesome.
Thank you. Well, I'm 20,000 words in now. You know, 300 and odd pictures, all of examples, and I'm sure I'm already thinking about a lot of revisions already. So I don't know. I hope everything happens on time. You know, because I have a life around doing
Sure.
this book as well. I hope everything happens on time. I would rather the book was late and done properly. Not that I'm aiming for that. I'm aiming for it to be on time and properly. But I want it as good as I can make it, which I'm sure won't be perfect, because it's the first time I've ever written a book. I'm not an academic guy. I didn't go to school or anything like that. So I'm doing my best, you know. And then maybe if there's revisions to be made, we can do them in future with Dave. And if I am inspired to do more books with him, because I'm sure I could just keep writing. You know, I'd do a book on non-mets, do a book on text. I don't know, or you know, just level 2 essentially. We'll see what the future brings. You know, or if somebody wants to come and sit here with me, do that as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
All of
Thank you,
Tommie's
man.
information will be down below in the description, so hit him up. I'll have everything down there. Check it out. The Kickstarter's link down there too. Go support it. It's the second round is so exciting. You're not only getting Tommie's book, but also 2 other fantastic artists. So go check out the project. Tommie, I just want to thank you, man. This has been amazing.
No, thank you, Vince, man. Do you know what? You just mentioned the other 2 artists. I've had a chat with Chris. Chris is big on telling the story. Like I was talking to you guys about creating noise in your head. That's Chris's thing. That's what informs all of his work.
Yeah.
I had a private chat with him a few weeks ago. I also had a private chat with Sani a few weeks ago. Man, what a fascinating guy. I can't wait to see what's in both their books, because it's almost like every book that's been so far, they're all polar opposites to mine. You know, they're all expressive and artistic, and mine isn't. And what's going to go in those books? When I read Chris's, so they made. Dave and Chris asked me to write the foreword for Chris's book. And I was like, I won't write the foreword until I've read the book.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh yeah, but we're still working on it. I was like, no, I won't write it until I've read the book. I won't write it until I've read the book. And I was so happy I did, you know, because there's a lot of heart and soul in those other works. And having chatted to those guys, it's exciting that my book's going to come out alongside 5 others. And hopefully it will help you see the wonder that they're producing, because they're going to be talking quite emotionally in process, but I'll be like helping you out with the technical side, which is good. But yeah, those guys, man, fascinating. Are you having them on, by the way?
Yeah, I've had Chris on before. I'll probably have all of them on again. Yes, absolutely. So
saying he's fascinating, man.
Yeah,
I really enjoy talking to him a lot.
Very good.
Well, yeah,
well, Tommie,
thank you, man.
Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate your time. All of you out there, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Check out the links. Everything's down below. As always, don't forget to give this a like. Subscribe, because we do the interview with the artist as well as everything else we do here. So do all those fun things.